Well, I think Fame and Muscle Shoals Music is here because we're fiercely independent. We've been doing business with Bank Independent since the 70s, and to know that they've got our back, it means a lot. We've always been there, and it's always just been a phone call away.
From the Tennessee Valley Weather Channel, this is your weather, live at 5.
All right, here's a live look at the Arctic Air Skycam network as we head into the 5 o'clock hour. And gray overcast skies across the region, overspreading across the area today. Very limited sunshine, if any at all, for some spots. We've still been warm today with a strong south wind, allowing us to be up into the mid to upper 60s, even a few spots getting around the lower 70s here and there. We're still back into the mid 60s for most of us here as of 5 o'clock. You notice a few light sprinkles off to the west in the West Tennessee and into North Mississippi. That is a sign that the wet weather system is approaching the area. We could have a shower across parts of the region during the evening, but the better rain chances hold off until later into the overnight. Regionally speaking, here's the first leg of our big storm system off to the west. You see earlier today, there was a tornado watch over parts of the Ozarks. There was actually tornado damage back into Oklahoma earlier. That's with the first leg of the low pressure system that's lifting off to the northeast. The tail end of that is what will spark off the showers and the thunderstorms late tonight and in through the morning hours of tomorrow. You can see that swirl in the water vapor imagery there. And then here's the jet stream tied to the drier air in the mid to upper levels there. But you notice the spin off to the west back into the Four Corners. That's the secondary disturbance. The main disturbance that ejects eastward over the next 24 to 36 hours merges in with the larger jet stream trough overall. And that's going to be the catalyst for the widespread rain and thunderstorms, the second round that moves into the area tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and through early Saturday morning. So a two-pronged storm system here, but dynamic, supportive of some locally heavy rainfall, maybe some flash flooding, and maybe not a zero chance, but a lowering chance of maybe a few stronger thunderstorms. So we have some details to talk about here. First off, there is a flood watch. Now this acts as a flash flood watch. They don't specify that anymore in the structure of the National Weather Service, but this is effectively a flash flood watch in effect for a large part of southern Middle Tennessee, all of North Alabama, from now all the way through noon on Saturday, for not the higher end wash your home away type flash flooding, but because we are in drought conditions, we have kind of hard soil conditions because of that, so that we're going to get runoff in this rain happening in a short amount of time, causing runoff. Yes, even just 1.5, 2 to 3 inches of rain will cause the potential for some flash flooding, even though we're not talking about huge rain totals. And we're mainly talking about the type of flash flooding you see on roads and streets, poor drainage areas, and low-lying areas. Again, we're not talking about rivers coming big time out of their banks, and we're not talking about homes being inches to feet underwater or homes washed away or anything like that. It's mainly poor drainage areas, low-lying areas, and streets and roadway type flooding, that type of thing. And that's mainly tomorrow into especially tomorrow night. But as this rain starts to add up, we are still talking about a large part of North Alabama leaking into southern Middle Tennessee of near or over 2 inches of rain, maybe up to 3. And there may still be some isolated banding here and there where the rainfall totals go over 3 inches of rain. But things have been nudging southward now with time because the low pressure, the secondary low tomorrow night is going to set up a little farther south. We don't get that screaming secondary low-level jet moving this far north. The morning, midday rain and thunderstorms and the early afternoon activity kind of shunts things off to the south, so that in a large part of our southern Middle Tennessee counties here, especially northwest of Pulaski, northwest of Lawrenceburg, from Savannah back through Waynesboro to Hohenwald to Columbia, we're closer to 1 inch of rain for the totals than we are closer to 2+. Still a decent soaking and still welcome rainfall, and there could still be some isolated street flooding here, but things have shifted southward just a little bit compared to what they looked like yesterday. No, to the south of our area completely, down in the central and south central Alabama, there's some signals that there could be some big time rain totals down there of 4+ inches of rain, and maybe a few isolated spots of 6+ inches down there in that part of Alabama. That's not setting up for our local area here in southern Tennessee or North Alabama, but it looks like some welcome beneficial rainfall. It just may cause some issues along the way. We are still watching some potential for some stronger or maybe severe thunderstorms tomorrow into tomorrow night, especially the overnight hours of tomorrow night. But that threat is starting to back off for our local area of southern Tennessee and North Alabama because of that morning, midday, early afternoon rainfall working over the environment, shifting the mesoscale boundary south of the area, and then the surface low track tomorrow night being closer to directly over us instead of our northwest, not really pulling the unstable air northward. So as of midday, there's still a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe thunderstorms up to Iuka, up to the Shoals Metro, up to Athens, and up to about Huntsville, and then south and west in yellow. North of that, up through southern middle Tennessee, it's been downgraded since yesterday down to a low end level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. We're still not going to turn our back on it, but we are stepping away from severe storms and a tornado threat being the prime concern, toward the prime concern probably being heavy rain and the potential for some part of a flash flooding risk. And I do think, unless the Storm Prediction Center just ends up being stubborn about this and doesn't want to move things, as they look at how the data and the setup is evolving, they're probably going to take the counties that we cover in North Alabama out of the level 2 risk as well when they update it later into the overnight or tomorrow morning. I think that yellow is going to get shifted southward with time, but we'll see. It doesn't matter what they do with it. We see how the forecast is evolving, and we're not ready to sound the all clear yet, but we are starting to step away from an organized severe storm risk tomorrow night. But we still don't want to completely discount it, especially south of the Tennessee River in North Alabama. There could still be some threat of a few isolated thunderstorm wind gusts 40 to 60 miles an hour. It's just a lower risk now than what it originally looked like. And there could still be some risk of a stray spin-up tornado there as well. But again, that risk is starting to set up mainly to the south of our coverage counties. I don't think hail is going to be too much of a concern at all, but there could be some embedded pea-sized hail. Can't be completely ruled out. The main thing we're starting to focus on is that potential for flash flooding, and we bumped it up to elevated now. And again, we're talking about streets, poor drainage areas, and low-lying areas mainly as the concern. Here's the timing breakdown with Futurecast. And you see a couple of showers just off to the west of us. Not any real consequence to that. Few showers starting to fill in after midnight across the area. Strong southerly wind overnight. We're going to stay in the 60s all night. And then as we get closer to daybreak, some heavier rain and some thunder gets involved in that. We will watch for maybe a gusty thunderstorm during this time period. Kelly Rosson will be here before sunrise tomorrow morning. She has a 6 a.m. show. She will be in before that watching radar, but I don't really think we're going to have severe weather concerns during the morning hours with this, because even though we're in the 60s, and that's wrong for this time of year, because of the vertical structure of the temperature profile in the atmosphere, not just at the ground, but from the ground up, it's not favorable for there to be favorable instability present for severe storms. Locally heavy rainfall, maybe some 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts, and some potential street flooding in the morning to midday, certainly possible. We get some heavier rain in here midday to early afternoon. That moves off to the east. And notice as we head into the evening hours, widespread heavy rain starts to lift back into the areas that low pressure approaches. And this is the reason why I don't want to completely turn my back on some potential of there being an isolated severe storm overnight tomorrow night, because some of the modeling, even though the main instability is south, even though the surface low track is right near us instead of off to the northwest of us, some of these high resolution models that are doing a decent job overall, not perfect necessarily, but a decent job overall, develop kind of a line type feature here in this back edge of the thunderstorm mass as the cool front is approaching. And if there is a feature like that, there could be a few isolated areas in the line where you have some gusty winds strong enough to do damage and prompt a severe thunderstorm warning. And there is a non-zero chance of a brief small spin-up tornado in a situation like that. So there could be a tornado warning as well. That's not a zero threat, even though the threat is substantially lowering. It's not zero. But notice that the temperatures as this comes in, they're like 58, 59, 60, 61. So we're going to be pretty stable at the surface, and that's going to work against, even if there is a line like that, it's going to work against it trying to get damaging wind gusts down to the ground or instigating a tornado at ground level. It's going to be working strongly against that. So that's why the risk is so low, but it's not completely zero. And for safety's sake, I'm not going to turn my back on it and tell you everything is just all clear. Showers start to taper off as we head toward the midday of our Saturday. Any stronger thunderstorm risk is out of here before sunrise on Saturday morning. Heavy rain may linger into the mid-morning, however. We'll start the morning hours to midday in the 60s, and then temperatures will fall by the afternoon on Saturday behind the front as colder air arrives, and then we will be chilly behind this, especially compared to what we are this week. Now, we're not excessively cold. I don't want to give that idea. Nothing Arctic, it looks like, but a change back to cooler weather certainly behind this system. A mix of sun and clouds into the early part of the week. Low pressure off to the northwest dives in toward Wednesday and gives us a few more showers toward the middle of next week. Here's the temperature trend, and you can see what I mean. Nothing Arctic in nature, but back to seasonally cooler air here. We go from the 60s to near 70 today and tomorrow. The first half of Saturday is still in the 60s before the cold front really blasts through. But then we're back to the 40s and the 50s here for daytime highs on Sunday. And we may need to lower some of those mid 40s here Sunday closer to the lower 40s. And then we're back into the 20s and 30s for overnight lows from Sunday, Saturday night and Sunday into the first half of next week. So it will be a big change from where we are now, but it's not anything that's unseasonably cold or Arctic in nature or anything like that as we head into next week. So for tonight, rain becoming increasingly likely, maybe a stray shower this evening, more likely after midnight, and then some rumbles of thunder working in during the early morning towards sunrise. Overnight lows into the low to mid 60s across the area. And then we top out in the upper 60s, maybe a few folks squeaking out 70 degrees despite all the clouds around. And again, off and on periods of heavy rain and thunderstorms through the day. And we still don't want to completely discount that potential for an isolated strong to severe thunderstorm. So for safety's sake, we are going to still flag a low end potential of it. But keep in mind everything I've already told you in very clear to understand detail. The threat's not zero, but it is lowering, and the main threat of that type is shifting south of our area. Our local area is leaning toward more of a heavy rain, embedded thunder, embedded background type gusty winds, and then some localized flash flooding across the area. Keep in mind, flash flood watch area wide that does not expire until noon on Saturday. Showers tapering off the deeper into Saturday we go. Clearing and cooler here from Sunday into the middle of the week before we see a few more rain showers toward next Wednesday. That's a look at your latest 7-day forecast. I'll be back at 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock with another check of your local weather.
You're watching the Tennessee Valley Weather Channel.